Hello, survivors. Thanks for joining us today. Before we begin, if you enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. Also, tell us in the comments which city you're listening from. It's great to see how far our community reaches. Now, let's start the story. The pre-flight check felt routine, almost boring. Straps secure, gauges green, fuel topped off, rotors clear. Just another Tuesday morning covering the city's sluggish crawl for Channel 6 News. Maria, my camera operator, and the closest thing I had to a regular work buddy in this gig, was already securing her gear in the back of the Bell Jet Ranger, humming slightly off-key. She lived for the potential chaos, the chance to catch something spectacular breaking below. Me, I preferred the quiet predictability of traffic reports. 10 years flying these skies, first in the Army, now chasing ambulances and fender benders, had taught me that spectacular usually meant someone else's worst day. "Anything exciting on the scanner, Alex?" Maria's voice crackled through my headset as I lifted us off the helipad atop the station building. The city sprawled below, still waking up under a hazy August sunrise. "Just the usual symphony," I replied, banking us gently towards the downtown. "A couple of accidents on the I-95 connector. Looks like a water main break near the old dockyards. Nothing worth interrupting morning coffee for." "Give it time," she laughed. "Something always happens." She wasn't wrong, but usually something was a multi-car pileup or a warehouse fire. Not this. The first hint came around 7:15 a.m. Police comms, usually a low-level chatter of domestic disputes and traffic stops, started picking up intensity. Multiple calls reporting assaults, erratic behavior, people acting violently disoriented. Unusual volume, but maybe a bad batch of something hit the streets. We were heading towards the I-95 snarl when David, our news director, patched through. "Sky Eye. 6 divert to City General Hospital West Wing." His voice was clipped, professional. "Getting reports of some kind of disturbance. Possible hostage situation involving medical staff. Police are en route. Try to get us some establishing shots." "Roger that, David. ETA 5 minutes," I replied, easing the cyclic stick over. Hospitals. Always made me uneasy, even from 500 feet up. Too many bad memories. As we approached City General, the scene looked less like a hostage situation and more like pure chaos. Multiple police cruisers were parked haphazardly, doors flung open. Officers were forming a loose, uncertain perimeter. Round the West Wing entrance, weapons drawn, but they weren't advancing. People in hospital gowns and street clothes were milling around the entrance, some yelling, some just staring blankly. "Maria, you getting this?" I asked, bringing us into a slow orbit. "Got it," she confirmed, her voice tight with focus as she zoomed the camera in. "Police aren't moving in. What are they waiting for? Looks like... Wait, zoom in there. Are those people biting?" I followed her camera angle on my monitor. She was right. Near the entrance, a figure in scrubs was latched onto a police officer's arm, teeth tearing at his uniform. The officer screamed, staggering back, firing his weapon wildly. Other figures were stumbling out of the hospital doors, moving with a jerky, unnatural gait, ignoring the police commands, ignoring everything but the drive to attack. Their skin looked pale, almost gray, even from this altitude. "David, are you seeing this?" I transmitted, my voice suddenly hoarse. "This isn't a hostage situation. It looks like patients are attacking staff and police, violently." "Get closer, Alex," David barked back. "We need clear footage. Is this related to those assault calls?" "Negative on closer," I said firmly. "Police perimeter is unstable, gunfire active, maintaining safe altitude." My gut clenched. Something was fundamentally wrong down there. The way they moved, the mindless aggression, the biting. Over the next hour, the situation devolved across the city. Calls flooded the emergency channels. Assaults, riots, inexplicable violence, breaking out in multiple unconnected locations. We flew from City General to a reported disturbance at the downtown transit hub. The scene was worse. Platforms crowded with panicked commuters trying to flee, while scattered figures moved through the chaos, attacking indiscriminately. Police were trying to establish control, but they were outnumbered, overwhelmed. We filmed a running firefight near the main terminal, officers falling back, their shots seeming to have little effect unless they hit the head. Headshots, Maria muttered, her professional reporter's mask starting to crack. Just like the movies. What the hell is going on, Alex? I don't know, I admitted, my hands tight on the controls. But it's spreading. David's voice came through again, frantic now. Sky I-6, multiple reports of similar incidents spreading outwards. Major pileup on the Beltway Bridge. People attacking each other in their cars. Get over there. We need visuals. The Beltway Bridge was a bottleneck on a good day. Today it was a vision from hell. Cars were jammed solid, stretching back for miles. People were abandoning their vehicles, trying to run, only to be swarmed by figures emerging from other cars or shambling up the ramps. Some fought back. Others were pulled down, disappearing beneath frenzied attackers. Fires had broken out in several vehicles, thick black smoke coiling into the sky. We can't stay here, David, I said, my voice strained. The pattern is clear. These aren't isolated incidents. It's something else. What are you saying? Alex, be specific. I'm saying it looks like every goddamn zombie movie I ever saw, I snapped back, professionalism evaporating in the face of the impossible reality below. People attacking, biting, spreading, whatever this is, they go. Down with headshots, nothing else seems to stop them. Silence on the comms for a beat. Then David's voice hushed. Jesus Christ, okay, Alex, new priority. Document everything. Get the widest shots possible. Show the scale. This is the story. His words chilled me. The story. People were dying down there. The city was tearing itself apart, and he wanted the story. But he was right. If this was really happening, people needed to know. Maria seemed to understand too, her focus narrowing, the camera swinging wide, capturing the panorama of collapse. We spent the next hour documenting the fall of the city from the air. We saw military vehicles attempting to set up roadblocks, only to be overrun. We saw desperate knots of survivors trying to fight their way through infected crowds. We saw police stations under siege, hospitals engulfed in flames. Then the first citywide emergency alert hit. It popped up on Maria's tablet, connected to the station feed. Emergency alert. Zombie outbreak detected. Pathogen spread confirmed via saliva, blood contact. Seek secure shelter immediately. Avoid infected individuals. Aim for the head. Zombie outbreak. Aim for the head. They were actually saying it. The absurdity, the impossibility crashed against the undeniable horror unfolding beneath us. They're calling it zombies, Maria breathed, her face pale, camera still rolling. They're actually calling it zombies. Where do we go, Alex? She asked after a moment, her voice small. The station? I thought about the helipad on the station roof. Exposed, vulnerable. If the infection reached that building. Negative, I decided. Too risky. We need fuel soon, and we need somewhere secure, away from the chaos. I scanned the horizon. Away from the burning city center. My eyes settled on the old municipal airport, miles west of downtown. Smaller, less traffic, maybe less infected. We're heading for Municipal West. Refuel, reassess. As I banked the helicopter away from the burning bridge, leaving the symphony of screams and sirens behind, I glanced at the fuel gauge. Less than an hour left. Not much time to find safety in a world that had completely lost its mind. The first day wasn't even half over. Flying towards Municipal West felt like traversing layers of hell. The further we got from the initial chaos downtown, the clearer the pattern of collapse became. Ribbons of gridlocked traffic snaked out from the city center on every major artery. Smaller pockets of violence erupted in suburban neighborhoods, figures stumbling from houses attacking neighbors, the infection spreading like ripples in a pond, smoke plumed from multiple locations now. no longer just downtown but scattered across the landscape. "Look," Maria pointed, zooming her camera towards a suburban shopping mall. The parking lot was a battlefield. People fought desperately with makeshift weapons, bats, tire irons, shopping carts, against a growing number of the infected pouring out of the mall entrances. A lone police car was surrounded, overwhelmed. We watched, helpless, as the last defender fell. "Can't we do something?" Maria asked, her voice thick with horror and helplessness. "Warn them? Land?" "And do what?" I countered, my own sense of impotence a bitter taste. "We have no weapons, barely enough fuel to reach the airport. Landing in that mess would be suicide, Maria. We document. That's the job. That's all we can do right now." It felt hollow, cowardly, but it was the truth. Our vantage point offered a terrifying overview but rendered us incapable of intervention. We were gods witnessing Armageddon, unable to lift a finger. The police scanners were a nightmare mosaic. Scattered reports, pleas for backup that went unanswered. Officers describing their own men turning after being bitten. The chilling clicks of empty chambers followed by screams. Then silence. The organized structure of emergency response had crumbled in a matter of hours. "Sky Eye 6, David here," the director's voice crackled through. Surprisingly calm now, but it was the brittle calm of shock, not control. "We're losing the station. They're inside the building. Lower levels are compromised. Evacuating essential. Personnel to the roof now. What's your status?" "Heading to Municipal West for fuel, David," I reported, my gut twisting. "City center is overrun. Infection is widespread, appears to be spreading exponentially." "Municipal West?" He sounded confused. "Negative, Alex. Military's designated Blackwood Airfield as the primary evacuation point for essential assets. All media helicopters ordered to proceed there immediately. Coordinates transmitting now." Blackwood. That was a military base 30 miles north, further than Municipal West, pushing our fuel limits. But if the military was organizing there— "Roger that, David. Rerouting to Blackwood. Station secure?" "Negative, They're on the stairs. We're sealing the roof access." A pause filled with distant, muffled screams filtering through his mic. "Alex, get the footage out. Whatever happens, show people what—" The transmission ended abruptly in a burst of static and a sound that could only have been breaking glass, followed by an inhuman shriek. "David?" I tried again. "David, come in." Only static answered. Maria stared at her console, hands covering her mouth. "He's gone. They're all gone." The silence in the cockpit felt absolute, broken only by the thrum of the rotors. We were alone. No station, no director. Just us and the dying world below. Blackwood Airfield. It was our only hope now. I pushed the helicopter faster, the engine, whining in protest, watching the fuel needle dip lower and lower. We flew over suburbs that were falling silent in a different way now. Fewer people running, fewer cars moving. More bodies lay still in the streets, often surrounded by feasting. Infected. Houses stood empty. Doors open. Signs of struggle visible through windows. The initial panic was giving way to the grim reality of overrun territory. Then we saw the refugees. Streams of people, on foot, carrying what little they could, heading away from the city along highways and back roads. They moved in huddled groups, casting fearful glances at the sky, at the woods, at each other. Occasionally, a group would be attacked by lurking infected emerging from the tree line. The brief, brutal struggle ending quickly before the horde moved on, leaving only silence behind. "We should land," Maria said suddenly, pointing towards a large group gathered in a high school football field. "Warn them about Blackwood, tell them where to go." "Maria, we can't," I argued, though my own conscience screamed at me. "Look at the fuel. We barely have enough to make Blackwood ourselves. Landing, taking off again? We won't make it. And drawing attention to them might just bring the infected faster. So we just watch them walk towards nothing?" Her voice trembled with anger. "What's the point of having this view if we don't use it?" The point, I said harshly, forcing down my own emotions, is survival. Ours first. Then maybe we can help others. If we run out of fuel over these woods, we're just 2 more bodies for those things to find. She turned away, staring out the window, the camera forgotten for the first time all day. The argument hung heavy between us. She was right, ethically. I was right, practically, and the choice felt like it was tearing me apart. We flew on in silence, the landscape below becoming more rural. Forests and fields replaced suburbs. The signs of the outbreak were less frequent here, but still present. An abandoned car run off the road, a lone figure shambling across a field, smoke rising from a distant farmhouse. The infection wasn't just urban. It was seeping into the countryside. The fuel warning light blinked on. 15 minutes of flight time left, maybe 20 if I pushed it. Blackwood Airfield was still 10 minutes out according to the GPS, which was miraculously still functioning, likely running on military satellite links. Almost there, I muttered, more to reassure myself than Maria. That's when the engine sputtered. Not a cough, not a hesitation, but a definite power-losing sputter. The RPM gauge dipped alarmingly. "What was that?" Maria asked, instantly alert. "Fuel line blockage? Bad fuel?" I scanned the instruments. Everything looked green except the damn fuel gauge rapidly approaching empty. The engine sputtered again, losing more power. We started losing altitude. "Mayday, mayday, mayday!" I broadcast automatically on the emergencies frequency, though I doubted anyone was listening. "Sky Eye 6 experiencing engine failure. Approximate location 15 miles south of Blackwood Airfield. Going down." Below us stretched miles of dense forest. No clearings, no roads, nothing but trees. "Find a spot," Maria yelled, scanning the ground. "Anything!" There, a small break in the canopy. Maybe a logging trail or a natural clearing, barely larger than our rotor diameter. It was our only chance. I fought the controls, coaxing the dying engine, guiding the helicopter towards the tiny patch of brown earth visible through the green. Trees rushed up to meet us. Branches scraped against the fuselage. The engine died completely, just as we dropped below the canopy. The landing wasn't a landing. It was a controlled crash. Rotors clipped branches, snapping them like twigs. The fuselage slammed into the ground with bone-jarring force, throwing us forward against our harnesses. Metal shrieked, plexiglass cracked. Then silence, broken only by the ticking of cooling metal and our own ragged breaths. We were alive. We were down. Stranded miles from safety, with darkness falling, in a forest that was likely hiding the same horrors we'd seen consume the city. The first day was ending, and our aerial perspective was gone. Now we were on the ground, with them. The silence after the crash was deafening, amplifying the frantic thudding of my own heart. Maria coughed, unbuckling her harness. "You okay?" "Think so," I managed, doing a quick self-assessment. "Bruised. Shaken, but nothing broken." "You?" "Same." She looked around the cramped, tilted cockpit. The front windscreen was a spiderweb of cracks. One side door was jammed shut, the other bent inwards. Warning lights blinked uselessly on the dead instrument panel. "Well," she said with grim humor, "guess we're walking." "First things first," I said, forcing my training to take over. "Secure the crash site, assess supplies, figure out where the hell we are." I grabbed the emergency kit from behind my seat. First aid, flares, water purification tablets, compass, survival knife. Pathetic against what was out there, but better than nothing. Maria salvaged what she could from her camera gear. Spare. Batteries, memory cards containing the horrifying footage of the city's fall, and the camera itself, miraculously intact despite the impact. Pushing open the damaged door, we stepped out into the twilight forest. The air was cooler here, thick with the smell of pine and damp earth, but beneath it, faint but unmistakable, was that same sweet, rotten undertone we'd smelled over the city. They were here. Using the compass and the last known coordinates, from the GPS before it died, I estimated Blackwood Airfield was still 12, maybe 15 miles north. A hard trek through dense woods, especially in the dark, but doable, if we weren't interrupted. We move north, I decided. Stay off any trails, stick to dense cover. Noise discipline is critical. What about the helicopter? Maria asked. Looking back at the wreck, should we destroy it? Hide it? No time, I said, and the crash probably already drew attention. We need to put distance between us and this spot fast. We started walking, pushing through underbrush, the setting, sun casting long, eerie shadows through the trees. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves made us jump. The forest, usually a place of relative peace for me, felt menacing, claustrophobic. The trees seemed to watch, the shadows hiding unseen threats. Darkness fell quickly beneath the canopy. We navigated by compass and the faint green glow of the zombie moon filtering through the leaves. The sounds of the forest at night, owls, insects, the scurrying of small animals, were overlaid with a new, terrifying possibility. Was that snapping twig just a deer or something else? Was that low moan the wind or an infected call? After about an hour, Maria stumbled, grabbing my arm. Did you hear that? I froze, listening. Faintly from behind us, the sound of shuffling footsteps dragging through the leaves. Not animal movement, too rhythmic, too heavy, and accompanied by a low, guttural moan. They're tracking us, I whispered. How? We've been quiet. The crash, she guessed. Or maybe they can sense us somehow. Doesn't matter. We need to move faster. Find somewhere defensible to wait them out or make a stand. I scanned the terrain ahead. The ground was sloping upwards, maybe a ridge, offering better visibility. This way. We pushed harder, ignoring the branches scratching at our faces, the roots tripping our feet. The sounds behind us grew closer. There were more of them now, multiple sets of footsteps, a chorus of those awful moans. They were faster in the woods than they looked on pavement, navigating the uneven ground with an unnatural, stumbling agility. We reached the crest of the ridge. Below us lay a small, dark valley, empty except for a derelict wooden structure near a dried-up creek bed. An old hunter's cabin, maybe? It looked rotten, unstable, but it was the only structure in sight. There, I pointed. It's a risk, but it's better than being caught in the open. We scrambled down the slope, sliding on loose rocks, glancing back constantly. The infected were closing the distance, their forms visible now in the green moonlight filtering through. The trees, pale shapes moving with that horrifying, broken gait. We reached the cabin just as the first ones emerged from the trees at the top of the ridge. The cabin door hung open on one hinge. Inside, it smelled of mildew and decay. Moonlight streamed through gaps in the rotten roof, illuminating overturned furniture, animal droppings, and thankfully no bodies. We shoved the door closed, barricading it with a heavy, termite-ridden table. It wouldn't hold them long. The windows, Maria gasped, pointing to the two empty frames boarded up loosely with decaying planks. We frantically piled broken chairs, a rusted wood stove, anything we could find against the flimsy barricades. The first infected reached the cabin, slamming against the door, the wood groaning in protest. More arrived, their moans a terrifying chorus outside. Fingers clawed through the gaps in the boarded windows. They're going to get in, Maria stated, her voice trembling but surprisingly steady as she gripped a heavy piece of firewood like a club. I know, I said, pulling out the survival knife, and the flare gun. 2 flares left. Not weapons, but maybe deterrents. Aim for the head, I reminded her, echoing the long-dead alert. Heavy bodies slammed against the walls. Wood splintered. A hand burst through the boarded window near Maria, grasping blindly. She swung the firewood, connecting with a sickening crunch. The hand retracted, but another immediately took its place. The door buckled inward, the rotten table scraping across the floor. This was it. Trapped, outnumbered, weapons almost useless. The end of the line, barely 12 hours after the world started ending. I raised the flare gun, ready to fire it, directly into the face of the first thing that broke through. A futile, defiant gesture. Then a new sound cut through the chaos. The unmistakable whoomp, whoomp, whoomp of helicopter rotors, close, directly overhead. A brilliant spotlight flooded the cabin, momentarily blinding us and the infected outside. "This is National Guard Rescue Unit 7, a voice boomed through a loudspeaker, impossibly loud over the rotors. "Survivors, identify yourselves. We are prepping for extraction." Hope surged, so intense it was almost painful. We weren't alone. Rescue. I scrambled towards the broken window, ready to signal them, ignoring the grasping hands reaching through the gaps. But as the helicopter hovered lower, the spotlight sweeping across the cabin and the surrounding infected, I saw something that turned my hope to ice. The side door of the chopper slid open. Figures stood silhouetted within. But they weren't soldiers in uniform. They were figures in torn civilian clothes, their movements jerky, their eyes reflecting, the spotlight with that same vacant red-tinged stare as the infected below. And they weren't holding rescue gear. They were holding ropes, hooks, nets. They weren't here to rescue us, they were hunting. The infected weren't just on the ground anymore. They were in the air. The world hadn't just ended below. The very concept of rescue, of safety from above, was a lie. The helicopter wasn't salvation. It was just another monster in the sky. "Get down!" I screamed, pulling Maria away from the window just as something heavy dropped from the helicopter. A weighted net, designed for capture. It landed heavily on the cabin roof, which groaned under the impact. The helicopter hovered, the figures inside watching us, waiting. The infected on the ground paused, momentarily confused by the noise and light, some even looking up at the chopper with blank incomprehension. It hit me then. The pattern, the rapid spread, the seemingly coordinated. Chaos, the way systems failed just so. This wasn't just a mindless virus, there was intelligence here, or at least a directed purpose, and it wasn't just on the ground. "They're working together?" Maria stammered, staring up at the hovering helicopter, her face a mask of disbelief and terror. "Or something's controlling them," I amended grimly. "The ones in the chopper, they look infected, but they're operating equipment, following orders." It didn't make sense according to the zombie lore we thought we understood. Mindless hunger, basic instinct, that was supposed to be the rule. But this was organized. The figures in the helicopter lowered ropes, not rescue lines, but thick cables ending in cruel-looking grappling hooks. They weren't trying to pull us up, they were trying to tear the roof off. "We have to get out of here," I said urgently. "They're boxing us in." The cabin's back wall, the one facing away from the ridge, was mostly intact, with only one small, boarded-up window. I kicked at the rotten planks. They splintered easily. Outside, darkness, trees, and mercifully, no infected immediately visible. "Move." I shoved Maria towards the opening. "Go! Run for the creek bed!" She scrambled through as the first hook crashed through the cabin roof near the front door. I turned back, facing the main entrance. The door was buckling, the table sliding further. Pale, grasping hands reached through widening cracks. I raised the flare gun. Not much, but maybe enough for a distraction. I fired the first flare. The bright red magnesium burst ignited the dry wood around the doorframe instantly. Flames leaped up, catching on the rotten walls. The infected outside shrieked, recoiling from the sudden heat and light. Above, the helicopter momentarily pulled, back from the smoke and flames. It bought us seconds. I turned and dove through the back window, rolling as I hit the ground outside. Maria was already disappearing into the trees near the creek bed. I pushed myself up, ignoring the searing pain in my shoulder from the landing, and ran after her. Behind us, the cabin became an inferno, flames silhouetted against the dark trees. The helicopter circled overhead, its spotlight cutting through, the smoke searching. We plunged into the thick undergrowth along the creek, the damp earth muffling our footsteps. We ran blindly, guided only by the downward slope of the land, tripping over roots, pushing through tangled vines. The helicopter followed, its spotlight probing the darkness, the whump, whump, whump of its rotors a terrifying heartbeat in the night. We pressed on, deeper into the woods, putting as much distance as possible between us and the burning cabin, Between us and the horrifying realization that the threat wasn't just shambling corpses, it was organized, airborne, and hunting. We finally collapsed miles later, hidden beneath a thicket of rhododendrons, lungs burning, bodies aching. The helicopter sounds had faded, either giving up the search or moving on to other targets. The only sounds were our own ragged breaths, and the distant, mournful cries of the infected, a constant reminder of the world we now inhabited. What was that? Maria whispered, her voice raw. Infected flying a helicopter? How? I don't know, I admitted, wiping sweat and grime from my face. Maybe the virus affects people differently. Maybe some retain cognitive function. Or maybe something else is piloting, using infected bodies like puppets? The thought was even more disturbing. We checked our meager supplies. 1 flare left, half a bottle of water, a handful of energy bars, a knife. Not enough. We were stranded, hunted, with maybe 10 miles still to go to reach Blackwood Airfield. Assuming Blackwood hadn't already fallen, or wasn't another trap. We rest here till first light, I decided. Moving in this darkness is too risky. Then we head north again, carefully. As we huddled together for warmth and meager comfort, the green zombie moon casting dappled, shifting patterns through the leaves, I thought about the first 12 hours, from routine traffic reports to citywide collapse documented from the air, from aerial observer to hunted prey on the ground. The world I knew hadn't just ended. It had mutated into something far stranger and more terrifying than any zombie movie had ever conceived. The rules were different. The enemy was evolving, and our chances of survival felt vanishingly small. But looking at Maria, her face grim but resolute in the dim light, I knew we couldn't give up. We had seen the end begin. Now we had to find a way to live in what came after. The dawn would bring its own terrors, but it would also bring the slimmest sliver of hope, and right now that was all we had.